Hi, everyone. Hello. Welcome to our first Fireside chat. My name is Sony, a partner of Impact Collective. Honored to have you all here. This session is going to be recorded and also live streamed on our YouTube channel, and will be shared with many others in the future. Today we have a beautiful, amazing speaker with us, as Sara from Sehat Kahani. Sarah, how are you doing? Hello.
I'm good. Thank you, Songi, for having me here.
Beautiful. Yes, so Sehat Kahani is one of our IC alumni from last year, and they are just my favorite team, to be honest. Sorry to all the other team. It's really amazed me because of their business model, and also that the mission of the company, and also the power engine behind this. Two amazing women, female founders. We will have like more stories from Sarah herself, but I'm really feel honored to have her on board today at our bedside chat. Sarah, do you want to just introduce yourself quickly about who you are?
Sure. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. So my full name is Dr. Sara Saeed Khurram. I'm a medical doctor by profession. I'm a mother of two young girls, 8 and 3. And I have been running Sehat Kahani. And Sehat Kahani means story of health in English for everyone's comfort. And I've been running Sehat Kahani for the last 5 years with my partner, Dr. Ifat Zafaraga. She's also a medical doctor. I'll explain more why we created Sehat Kahani later. But before starting the company, I worked a little bit in public health, in radiology. I've actually trained as a physician of radiology before starting Sehat Kahani. So that's a little bit about myself.
Beautiful. And then, being a woman doctor in Pakistan, and I get to know about the Pakistan healthcare services, and also the bride doctor, or doctor bride, whatever the word is. That really amazed me, the story behind your starting story of Sehat Kahani. Could you give us a little bit more story, a background story about how Sehat Kahani has started, and then what made you actually do that job?
So my story starts when I was born. So I'm born in a very typical middle-class Pakistani family. Pakistan is a culturally conservative country. And, if you belong to a middle-class family, and if parents have a little bit of money to educate you, and if you're a girl in the family, they want you to become a doctor. And my parents wanted the same. And the reason why this is that being a doctor for a woman in Pakistan is considered very noble. It's considered it raises your social stature in the society. So I had two older brothers, and I was the third sibling. So from age 5, as far as I remember my childhood, my parents always told me that I had to become a doctor. And I studied all my life with this one dream in mind. And I had a very one-track mind when I was growing up. When I entered into the medical college, and I went into this university, which is the top university of Pakistan, and the best 300 students come there from all over the country. And it's a very old style university. So, old school British auditorium was there. So I entered into the auditorium, and I saw that out of the class of 300, 280 were women. So all young 16, 17-year-olds like me, who had come with the same dream, the same ambition, that they had to become a doctor. And somewhere all their stories also kind of resonated my own, that their parents had asked them to become a doctor. They were told that they needed to become a doctor because this is going to be a good profession for them to have. But as I passed through my years of medical college, I saw a very interesting transaction happening. I saw that the women who were getting, the highest grades in school, and who were very ambitious about her career, that we need to become a doctor. And women, when they study, they become very, very, very competitive about it as well. I saw them suddenly transition to getting married and having children or getting engaged, and somehow their thought process changing from starting their medical career to starting a family or getting settled down. And that's when I realized that our culture inhibits a problem in us, and that's called the doctor bride phenomena, in which parents want their daughters to become doctors so that they can get into medical school and get a medical degree. But then they tell them that now you have to get married and start a family. And for a married doctor, working is not the first option. So we want female doctors to hang their degrees on the wall and then settle down and get married and not work. Because a working woman in Pakistan is still considered taboo. It's not that common. Women don't work in our country because of cultural conservativeness issues. So I saw that happening to my friends, to my peers who started getting married, having children. And when I finished my graduation, my parents also pushed me to the same thing. So they also told me that now you've become a doctor, now you have to get married. So within 3 months of my house job, I got married through perfectly arranged marriage. I went through the same cycle. But one thing that was different in my case was that I practiced even after my marriage. So my doctor bride phenomena happened when I got pregnant. I was doing my residency in rheology. I had to give it up because I got pregnant. My husband shifted to a new city. And suddenly, from studying to become a medical doctor, trying to get a postgraduate career, I ended up being in a new city, in a whole big house with a new baby, a husband that was away from 8 a.m. in the morning to 8 p.m. in the evening because he did a corporate job. And I absolutely did not have anything to do. And that's when I fell into severe postpartum depression and realized that this is it. I am the doctor bride everyone was telling me about since so many years. I was very unhappy. I was miserable. I hated my child. I hated my husband. And in the middle of that, when I was pregnant, as I couldn't do my residency, I was doing a small community clinic in Karachi just to pass my time. And I had to leave that when I shifted. That nurse started to call me from my old city and said that, we can't find a female doctor to replace you. So I started doing consultations on call with that nurse. So I was sitting in Lahore, which is one city, and my clinic was in Karachi, and I was doing calls. Simple phone calls. And later we realized that calls are not helping because I had to see the patient. And she had a laptop. She put a small camera on her laptop and started doing consultations on video. And suddenly, this hit me that I'm sitting at home and doing consultations over video call. Why can't all female doctors who sit at home within or outside Pakistan, why can't they all start doing the same? Because Pakistan is also a country. So if I talk statistically, Pakistan is a country of 200 million people. We're the 5th largest population in the world. Half of our population, 100 million people, don't see a doctor in their lifetime. Majority of these are women and children. Majority of these are people in low-income areas. We have 200,000 doctors. 63% or more are female doctors. And 85,000 doctors in Pakistan don't work. So if we connect these 85,000 doctors, 200 million people, we can solve a big supply-demand gap in the Pakistani health ecosystem. And it's pretty doable because I did it and I realized that it's not that difficult to do. Majority of patients that come to clinics have primary care issues. They can be seen over telemedicine. So we started. I was still in the hall. I was still alone with my child. I came back. I started applying to a few startup competitions. I told my husband, I have to do this because otherwise I'm going crazy. And I was making him crazy as well. So I came back. I didn't have any money to start with, just an idea. One or two team members who started to work with me. And then the idea that which we started was that we take clinics in low-income communities that are run by nurses or midwives, and we train them for the software and upgrade their clinic as well, so that when a patient comes to them, they don't see the patient, they connect the patient to an online doctor. And this exactly through one person and one clinic and $25,000 that I won through a startup competition. That's how we started the journey around 5-6 years back.
Wow, how amazing is that? It's that every time I hear this story, I'm just like getting goosebumps. But having an idea and having a courage, that's something people can do probably. But how can you like make it as an action? And then where is Sehat Kahani right now compared to the one patient and one medical center that 5, 6 years ago and now? Yeah.
So, whenever someone asks me this, um, I really feel that even from the first day that I wrote it down on a piece of paper, when I entered into my first startup competition, I knew wholeheartedly this would work. I was the only one who believed that. Whoever I told, even when I told my husband, I told my parents, because they were all thinking that, okay, now she's taking a break. She'll go back being a clinician. Her life will continue. So for them and startups in Pakistan or entrepreneurs in Pakistan 5, 6 years ago was a term that was extremely unheard of, especially in the field of medicine. You consider tech people or fintech people doing this, but someone who's a doctor and has a pretty simple normal life doing this was unheard of. So I faced a lot of resistance internally, but somewhere I knew from day one that this can work and I need to do this. And it was unconventional. It was a little different from what all my other from what my other peers were doing, and that excited me. When I opened my first clinic, and when I saw actually another doctor being connected, so first it was just me, right? But when I saw another doctor being connected, when I saw a nurse being brought on board and training for the software, when I saw patients getting treated, that is when my belief formed. Then Ifad, my co-founder, joined 3 months later. And we opened the first clinic, and in 3 months, we opened the second clinic. Our first clinic did really well. Our second clinic failed miserably. It didn't work from the day one. We realized 3 months later that we had found a Christian nurse in a very conservative Muslim community. And it had a lot of security risks as well. The coordinator got death threats. And that made me realize that if I'm going to do this, I can't just do it on ad hoc basis. We need to create a whole company. We need to create a whole structure. There has to be processes and SOPs in place before we start anything, because unless we do that, it's never going to work. At this time, I participated into my first accelerator program. It's an accelerator program in Pakistan called I2I. And it's Invest to Innovate. It's run by Kulsum Lakhani, which is my entrepreneurial godmother. And I remember the first night when I was with her. It was a residential program, so we had to be away from our homes at that time. And that pre-COVID, it was still a possibility. And she sat me down in her room, and she taught me about the entrepreneurial rockstar syndrome, which is when you're pitching at many places, but you're actually not working on your company, which was somehow happening to us also at that time. Because obviously pitching and talking about the work is nice, but doing the work is very difficult. And she told me that if you want to be here 10 years from now, you better stop talking and better start working. Because if you don't do this now, you won't survive. And I think being in that accelerator program and getting mentorship from her for the next 6 months was extremely crucial and changed my life. Because she taught me everything from customer journey to product mapping to business plan to financial plan. And under her guidance, we really started the company with all the processes in place. In 2017, we had the clinics going and they were running well, it was doing well. We were running as a social impact company. We had some money from startup funds and competitions. We were bootstrapping. The clinics were growing. But we realized that we won't be able to survive until we add a high revenue vertical to the company, because we didn't want to be an NGO. We wanted to become a social impact business. The clinics were creating money, but just enough money to sustain themselves. And at this time, we realized that if we have to create anything that is commercially sustainable, we have to add a high revenue vertical. So what we did was the product that we had created for the app, we decided to launch it for a commercial market as well in the form of a mobile application. Now, when we told our group of advisors, we were a small company at that time, we were 8 to 10 people and 15, 16 doctors working for us, 8 clinics. When I told my limited group of advisors that we want to do this, everyone looked at me as if I've gone crazy once again. Because I realized that people find it very believable that 2 female doctors are running a social impact company, working for the poor, getting soft money to run the company, but them getting out and running a commercial business, a high-tech business, it was not palatable for a lot of people. And I tell you, 99.9% people told me not to do it. But me and my co-founder, again, we have this firm idea that if we can do it for a community that is illiterate, that does not understand technology at all, that when we first went to them, said that this is, you're making a video of us and uploading it on a dark web somewhere. If we can bypass those challenges and bring them on this platform for quality healthcare, if we can train a nurse in a community to learn the software and use it, it can definitely work for smartphone users and literate people and people work from the urban communities, because access to doctors in Pakistan is not just an issue of getting to a doctor. There's access, there's quality, there's affordability. And these 3 things limit even people in the urban cities or people in the urban areas from getting healthcare. I was sitting with my father today morning in a hospital and I missed a meeting because his appointment was an hour late. I would have loved if that doctor that I was showing, that particular doctor, was on my app right now. And in my appointment during my father's appointment, I actually asked her, why don't you please come to my app so that I don't have to come to you next time, because it is so impossible to do this during weekdays. So we realized that this is a challenge. This is also a time in Pakistan where apps were coming in and the smartphone users were increasing. So we started making the application. We made it once, we failed miserably. We made a crappy app. We crashed it and then we made it again. And finally in 2019, we launched our app for the commercial market. One of the things that we learned from our clinical model was when patients came to the clinic, the first and the only thing that they liked most was instant connection with the doctor. So you came to a clinic, you sat, the nurse connected you, you're done. We replicated the same thing for a mobile app. So we said that when a smartphone user downloads the app, the first thing in the app that they would see is that they can connect to a doctor within 60 seconds. And that was not being done by any other app in Pakistan. All other apps were appointment-based, where the appointment happens the next day or 3 days or 4 days later. When we launched this in 2019, we didn't get a good response. There was a very slow response. Doctors were not coming on it. Patients were using it and having difficulties. We were upgrading the application. We were getting bugs. And in March 2020, COVID came. And that suddenly was a milestone shift in what Sehat Kahani was doing, because when we talked to people about telemedicine post-COVID, pre-COVID in Pakistan, people said that this is okay, this is great, but everyone told us that this would never become mainstream. This would never be something that is used by everyone every day. When COVID came, I got a call from the government, and government told us that we need a telemedicine partner because we're going into a lockdown and a lot of people are going to have to go to doctors in COVID. And during lockdown, the best thing to do is to do it through online telemedicine. And we've seen your app and your app is there in the market, and we want you to partner with us and provide that telemedicine solution. And partnering with government, I think that gave us a very big push last year, because that decimated the app, and a lot of people, from 60 patients a day, we went to 1,000 patients a day coming on the app. From 60 doctors, 60, 70 doctors, we went to 700 doctors in 3 months. Our company scaled. We were adding 5 to 6 employees every 15 days. We set up a whole 24/7 call support center. And whatever we are planning to do in the next 2 to 3 years, I think we did it rapidly in the next 6 months. And that is where Sehat Kahani really established as an early stage social enterprise that has clinics for low-income communities, a retail app for the retail sector, and then we launched a corporate app as well for corporate employees to get telemedicine services. And since last year, we've really worked very, very hard on our company processes, our governance methods, our organizational development for employees, how we're going to take the company for the next 5 years. I think last year has been very monumental. And I think me and Ifat both, we've really given it we've really worked hard since last 18 months, because when we saw people using the app, I think that is when our own motivation kind of reinstilled that, okay, this is something that can stay for long run. And we need to be sure that we are the market player doing it. So that's how it, from an idea, I think, or a smaller company, it has now progressed to what we do today.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I mean, but that's an amazing story. And then I have like so many questions, but let's narrow down a little bit. So you mentioned a few times that you were actually social impact company, and that you are still do, but you also realize that the commercializations and the making revenue is super important to really sustain your business. And then a lot of our guests here today, participants, they also in a very similar situation. I see some of the people from Nepal, Cambodia, they're doing an amazing job, and they're like start to really building up their business at the moment. They probably have a question later, but like, how can you actually balance between the acquiring an impact and the business, right? Sometimes it's kind of hard to choose which one first, or you don't even have to choose first because it's so aligned together. So what's your perspective around the balancing impact and business?
Yeah. See, I think we've juggled with that question for the last 5 years. And when we started making the application, a question that was raised at that time by advisors, then why the clinics? Shut the clinics down, turn into a commercial company, and just do high revenue business. But we pride ourselves to be an impact business. So we wanted to create a hybrid structure in which there's one vertical that is focused on the low income, the people who are underserved for healthcare in Pakistan. And our model will help them elevate their healthcare at a lesser price, but lesser revenue as well. And then we would have a cross-subsidizing high revenue vertical, in which our main driver would be revenue and not impact, but that would cross-subsidize for the cost being bared by the high impact low revenue vertical. So we have a hybrid structure. What we've done over time is we have tried to reduce the expenses of our high impact low revenue vertical. So we've worked on innovative ideas to reduce cost. One of our major costs was setting up the clinics. That is a capex expenditure that we take every time we build a new clinic. And it was creating a dent on our costs and our overall OPEX and of the company. So we started a franchising model last year in which we don't invest in the clinic. We actually ask the nurse to take a loan from us. So she takes a loan, and that loan is guaranteed from a bank, and it has a very small interest rate. And we build the clinic with that loan. And as she works with us, and through the revenue that she makes through us, she gives the loan back. Now, because she's making increased revenue, it's a small amount that she has to pay back. The clinic at the end of 5 years becomes hers. It also cements our relationship with her, because then she has to work with us for 5 years. And in a marriage, if you can make it work for 5 years, then you can make it work for longer. And, so that's because the nurse's ownership, her value to work with us is extremely important. We've invested more money since last year in our commercial vertical. So how we managed it was that we knew that we had to keep the high impact vertical running, but reduce cost. Invest more money in the high revenue vertical so that we can help it more money and bring it to a critical mass, where it can give us the revenues back. But I think that if you're balancing as a social impact entrepreneur, the real problem is very important. For us, the problem is that healthcare in Pakistan is a challenge for 100 million people. Now, out of those 100 million people, around 60 to 70 million people live in the low income area. So that is our market. But 40 million people live in the urban areas as well. So we cannot leave them behind. So our primary metric is whoever in Pakistan cannot get a doctor comfortably, affordably, and with quality, we need to reach there. They can be in a low income area, they can be in a middle income area, they can be in a high income area. We are never going to create a product for the elite sector of Pakistan, which is the 2 to 3%. So we're not going into a commercial niche business which has the top line doctors, because that is not where we want to work. But other than that, the majority of Pakistan living in different socioeconomic populations, wherever they have a problem for healthcare and reaching doctors, we are there. And that becomes our key impact metric. Whenever we do analysis on a company, or whenever we record our metrics, we see how many patients we've seen from the low income areas, how many patients we've seen from the urban areas, and then disease wise as well. So that's how we balance both out.
Yeah. I think you made a really good point in terms of like a business strategy and also the target marketing. Because like when we look at this market, like Pakistan or Nepal, like Cambodia, in the emerging economy, we shouldn't actually neglect them as a market, because like that's one thing that we learn as well through working with you guys. Like this is a really huge market, and then a lot of people don't see the value yet. And so like they are like learning about the market right now, and then that's where a lot of impact and business can be created. So super exciting for the future. And then also you touched on a little bit of like your kind of key metrics around the impact, and that's very helpful for other entrepreneur, I believe. And one other question is that let me see my question list. You mentioned at one of your TED talk or one of your video that your secret recipe to success is not only technology behind the telehealth, but connecting the micro entrepreneurs and also training nurse in the community. You also mentioned that you are now giving a loan to the nurses and working with them. And I know how hard it is to actually build a community around the business. And is there any tips, or how do you actually dealing with those?
So yes, I think technology is definitely an enabler. And as we move forward, we are investing more and more in technology. But what I feel the difference is between us and other telemedicine competitors in Pakistan or the telemedicine players is that they're technical people building a medical company, whereas we are medical people building a technical company. So for me, the app is extremely helpful in getting patient to connect to a doctor and helping them navigate through the process faster and easier. But those 18 minutes that a patient, so our average consultation time between doctor and patient is 18 minutes. I think for me, what happens between those 18 minutes is extremely important. How is the doctor talking to the patient? What are they asking? Are they showing empathy? Are they giving time? Are they understanding the patient? And what is the patient feeling at the end of it? Are they feeling satisfied? Is their issue solved? Did we actually help them? It's not just bringing them to an app. Did we actually help them in their medical problem that they were having? Because unless and until we can do that, they would never go out and say that, okay, I consulted a doctor on the Sehat Kahani app and I want to go back again, or you should try it, which is something that has happened for us, both in our clinics as well as on our retail and corporate app. Until this year, we never invested any solid money in marketing. But whoever tried the application, they always came back and said that, no, I really like the doctor, how they talked, how they were dressed, how they were sitting, how they gave time to us. And that I think was when I talk about metrics, we have created metrics on everything. So I'm a very detailed oriented person. So I like tracking very minute things as well. We tracked that when a patient came on a consultation, what was the average wait time? It's 1 minute, but how many patients had to wait more? What was the average doctor-patient consultation time? During the consultation, how many patients converted to video, then how many patients were given prescriptions, did they buy the prescriptions, did they come for a follow-up, how many came for a second follow-up. So we track all those things, and we realize at the end of it that
where we ended.
So I think one thing that we did from the start was, because we knew that we're working with a group of doctors who might have given up work at some stage of their life. When we bring them back, they need to be trained to be able to become those providers. We also knew that we're going to work through intermediaries whose medical knowledge might be varied, because some of them might be nurses, some of them might be midwives, so I had to standardize their education as well. And that was extremely important, because at the back of it, I'm a medical doctor myself. So medical malpractice or malnegligence really terrified me from the day one. So we really invested hard in creating protocols and SOPs for the quality of consultation that would happen. So if a patient came with fever, how would all doctors go about the process? We created algorithms. And we translated them in Urdu and then pictorial so that nurses could learn them. And we obviously didn't do it from day one, but over the years, we really kept cementing our training procedures and protocol. And we ultimately created an OLP, which is a learning management solution that allows all doctors and nurses to go on it and practice on their own and take courses. Standardization of training, I think, has been a crucial thing for us, because it has helped us recruit doctors quickly, recruit nurses quickly, train them, and make sure that the patients are coming on the platform are more or less getting the same quality of care. And then after we started getting data, we started auditing it as well. I also believe in the power of using existing resources available rather than developing new resources. So when we talk about creating products, we say, oh, we'll train X many people for this skill. But in our case, it was more about training the existing resources available and upgrade them into telemedicine providers. I don't think we would have reached here if we didn't practice our clinical model first before creating a commercial application, because that model, practicing it with the low-income communities, with nurses, how to deal with different cases that came there, really help us polish and refine our product to what it is today. So if I give any advice, I would say that, work on your company operations and SOPs, really detail every process out. Second is set very individual and personalized KPIs for your company and for your product. There are a lot of templates available, but you need to track every measurable thing that you can out of the process that you have. It's a tedious process first, that once you have that setup made, it becomes very interesting to see how you're growing month on month. And third thing is that whoever is doing that process, really invest in their skill building. Sometimes, when I work with a team, when I work with doctors, I realize that communications or talking is a very big problem that doctors have, because we're not the best communicators. And we really had to invest. We got a trainer in who created a video on how to talk to a patient with more empathy, how to not look like a god in front of the patient, because in Pakistan there's a huge doctor god phenomenon. But come at the level of patient and talk to them. So that these little things that we've worked over time has really helped us. And the fourth thing and the final thing before I stop, I think our when we launched the app operations with the government and we went into massive scale, I had a very big fear that people use the application and they'll go through different experiences and we won't be able to recall how their experience went. They'll just rate the application, and normally times people just rate the application for the purpose of it. I really wanted to get their personalized feedback on the application. So when we started the app operations, we used to give a call back to every patient and ask them how their experience was through a 5-tier questionnaire. Now we do it for 30% of the patients, because obviously the patients have grown and we can't keep calling everyone. But that initial feedback for the first 6-7 months, calling every patient back for like 30-40 seconds, because everyone didn't pick up the phone. That was very important, because that solved small glitches in the application, in the process flow, how the doctor was talking, how the app was working on a day-to-day basis. That I think was very important, that personalized feedback from the patient.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm so impressed at how how you can actually do that. But I think there's a lot of like entrepreneurs here in this room actually already kind of torching to that way, or already doing some sort of metrics that they already having and that they are calculating. And if you don't have it yet, I mean, we provide like some sort of like a KPI of impact business, and also the development of your process as a business and as also entrepreneurs, as you got to share with a home group lead. So just to keep practicing, setting up the goals and setting up the KPIs and setting up the metrics. And you can't be perfect at the first time, right? But you just keep doing it, and then just finding those. That's how we all started, I think. Yeah. And yeah, before we move on to the open Q&A, because this theme is inclusive health, and then health has been such a big issue for all of our life for the last 2 years, and I mean, it was before, but like it's more obvious these days right now. And as an healthcare and an inclusive health innovators and entrepreneur, what do you see? What's your kind of insight to the future?
I think one thing that I feel is um, a lot of people all over the world have realized the value of health, and both physical and mental health. I think that has been a huge paradigm shift that I've seen, especially in this part of the world, in third world countries, where physical health is such a big question always that no one really focuses on mental health or inclusive health in terms of, because health is not just physical, it's emotional, it's social, it's mental, it's
Mm-hmm.
development. So I think now I see that health is being looked at from that angle. Um, I also feel that technology will be a huge game changer in healthcare for the future. Healthcare and digital health and in automated health and in terms of data privacy, security, automation, that was all happening pre-COVID, but it was a little slow as compared to the other sectors. I think that the technology disruption that has happened in the last 2 years has been massive, because we were all pushed into this situation where we couldn't see a doctor physically, and everything from consultation to diagnostics to medicine delivery to data automation has really accelerated in the last 2 years. And this will help us in the longer run really change the way healthcare is given to everyone. We've seen with our own solution that when a patient used to come to us, how we took the history, how we use data has become very different. So now we actually use data of a diabetic patient, even within our own application, to send them preventive healthcare messages. So when a diabetic patient joins the application, they get automated messages on how to handle their blood sugar better, what kind of foods they need to have, what kind of medicine they can take, how much water they need to drink, and when do they need to come back for a follow-up consultation. My father is a very old cardiac patient, so he's battling a cardiac issue for the last 40 years now. And he got to know about his cardiac issue when he had a heart attack, when half of his heart died. That is the starting point that he had. If he had access to the same technology that I have created or that we have right now, he would at least have known 5 years before and could have managed it from a point where he would not have lived the next 40 years of his life fighting a disease, but preventing himself from one. I think that is the road that we're heading towards now. More preventive healthcare as compared to curative and just manageable healthcare.
Thank you so much for sharing this insight. Yeah, I mean, yeah. So many juicy tips and so many juicy insight. I'm like super excited. And thank you so much, Sarah. Now we're gonna move on to the Q&A. That has been already a few questions around, and I don't know if any of you guys want to just voice out and then share your questions with Sarah directly here. Otherwise, I can also read up as well. Lisa, are you able to speak up?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, yes. Thank you very much for your presentation, Sarah. Really insightful in how you managed to tackle healthcare in Pakistan. My question is, was it difficult to sign up the doctors to a new service that required a behavior change? Because they're not used to working through an app or through telemedicine. So was that a challenge?
So that's a very interesting question, and so because the focus of the company was to bring back female doctors back to work, which haven't been working before. I think that made it a little easier for us because we were giving opportunity to work to a group that wasn't working. When I think the difficult part was when a doctor comes on this application, trying to make them understand what a telemedicine platform is and how is it different from a physical consultation is the main challenge for us. When doctors sit in Pakistan, they're sitting in a room and they normally come into a waiting room full of patients, just waiting for them. So it is like an actor coming on stage to perform. You know, they have this hero or heroine of the film feel. But when they come on a telemedicine platform, they're one-on-one on a patient, and that dynamic of that relationship really changes. Then on top of that, they have another company who is monitoring their process, which is us. So we monitor their attendance, we monitor their compensation. We tell them if you didn't come on time, this is what's going to happen. So managing that ego of a doctor, whether it's a female doctor who hasn't worked for the last 3 years or someone who's a specialist, has been a main challenge because you have to make sure that they are also one end of the problem that you're handling. So you have to be empathetic to them. You have to understand where they're coming from and also make them understand that the patients that are coming on the platform are not coming from an inferior level. They are coming to you, and this is going to be a very balanced relationship within this online telemedicine room that we've created for you. We've had challenges in maintaining that relationship with the doctors, but over time we've learned how to talk to them, what kind of incentives to provide to them, how to make sure that they're comfortable within the solution. We still face a lot of problem from the older doctors that come in, from the older generation, because they're very used to this. Sitting on a table, seeing patients one by one. But over time, we've created videos, tutorials, step-by-step videos for these doctors who find technology a big problem, hand-holding, getting on Zoom sessions for them, telling them how to use the application. And over time, we've made the app easier as well for doctors to use. So yes, it has become relatively better, but still, it is a difficult process to make doctors realize that this is a platform that they need to work on. It's not going to be a physical room where they are sitting. But in terms of the queries on working on the application, I think we've never faced an issue on that. In fact, we opened the portal a month back for 60 doctors to join, and we got around 8,000 queries on the portal, and we had to shut it down. That's the kind of interest that we get now on the portal to join us as a doctor.
Wow, that's really nice to hear that, actually. I have another question now as well, which is to do with the pricing. Do you charge the patient then the normal price, or do they get a slightly discounted price because they're not really going into a clinic? So, and how do you remunerate the doctors or incentivize them?
Yeah. So all services of Sehat Kahani are charged and patients pay for it. In the clinics, we charge 50 rupees per consultation, which is competitive for a low-income market. On the app, we have different methods. So we actually have a corporate app, in which the corporate gives us their employees to which we provide the service. All employees get access to our corporate app. So here, there's a B2B channel, the corporate pays us. Then we have a retail app in which individual customers use the service. Now, when individual customers use the service, they can use it. They can either pay before the consultation or they can buy a subscription plan. And that's actually set on a higher income market. So we have consultations from 500 rupees to 5,000 rupees as well. And they're different for specialists and mental wellness experts. Whichever consultation that we do, we have a percentage set for the doctors, and they get a percentage cut. So they will charge 60%, 70%, they will get, and then the rest we will get as our revenue. The doctors don't have to pay anything to come into the platform. So we've kept it very similar to how a physical clinic model would work in Pakistan, so that when the doctors come, they would feel that they're doing everything the same, just doing it on a virtual platform. So that's how the pricing is set for different markets that we serve.
Thank you
so
very much.
Yeah. And Sushil, you have a question?
Yeah. Hi everyone. Ms. Sara, it was amazing to hear your story and then how you started, and it's always exciting to hear more about the impact startup. So because the kind of changes which you are bringing in the society, and that will what will decide the future of the any coming generation. That's amazing. Thank you so much for your sharing the entire story and your journey. Ms. Sara, I'm Sushil Vaishnav. I'm basically, we are also the one of the impact state startup, and what we are doing is we are basically collecting the waste cooking oil, which is getting into the repetitive use, and then it is creating so many health hazard among the millions of the people. So we are trying to again the preventive health. So if we are able to control it here, probably we will safeguard the health of the million people living in this country. So now, Ms. Sara, what I am looking for, as you mentioned initially, you started bootstrap your own efforts, and there's so many difficulties. I want to understand from your side. I'm being a little selfish on this side. Like, I want to understand. See, once you started your journey, you were alone, and then you also got this lot of support. So I want to understand. Can you share some global platforms or global forums which has supported you and which has actually accelerated your entire journey, apart from local support from your own country? So can you share some insight and how we can also connect and we can get benefit out of it?
No, I think Sushil, that's an excellent question, because for the first 2 years of building Sehat Kahani, I actually did not get any support from any of the local players in Pakistan, and we did not even raise funding. So we started in 2016. We raised our seed round in 2018 of $200,000. This was the first time we raised private equity investment, and then we just did our pre-series A of 100,000 of $1 million. Now, what did we do for that first 2 years? Because we had a pretty big team going. And I think that was the time that a lot of international social impact platforms supported us with both financial and non-financial funding. So one of the bigger accelerators that we were part of was Spring Accelerator. It is a human-centered design accelerator that was run by Diffit. And I think that really shaped our company in terms of the processes that we've created over time from a human-centered design angle. That I think was the first. The second was that we got a GSMA fund. GSMA is a mobile technology company, and they actually became a part of our first seed round. So they matched the funding that the equity investors gave us. So half of our round was equity and half of our round was GSMA. And that I think that network has been extremely influential in getting us more investors, in getting visibility for the company. So I think it's Diffit and GSMA, and then another fund that we got was Amplify, which is another organization that helped us. Open IDEO was another one that we applied for a lot of challenges that they faced for the health sector. So what we did was because I knew that we needed money to run the organization. I was good at writing grants and challenges. So I used to scope a lot of international opportunities that kept coming in the health sector, and I applied. So my routine was that I used to apply to 2 to 3 smaller funding opportunities in a week. And over the time, I created a master document. So they're all usually the same kind of questions that everyone is asking. So I created a master document, and I used to just copy paste, tweak a little bit here and there, and keep submitting these applications, because I knew if I submit 10, then maybe 5 would be shortlisted and 1 would be something that I get. But what it did was it gave us a continuous stream of money to keep running the application, the organization. One thing that we ensured is we did not apply in anything that did not match our company focus. So we only applied in competitions that helped us accelerate the business without any KPIs or milestones attached to them that would change our business flow or change the purpose of the company. So if there was money for family planning, I never applied for it. If it was funding for HIV, I never applied for it. And there was lots for it, but it didn't match the company purpose or the company vision. Then when I knew that I had made a company with traction, with people using it, that is when I raised the first round. And now we have gradually over the company's journey, we have reduced the number of grants that we apply to and increase the revenue, increase our revenue verticals and also investment. So now we are raising our Series A round of $8 million. Only 1 million is going to be raised through grants and 7 million from private equity VC channel funding. I've kept 1 million there because it is a way for us to save some of our equity and not dilute down at a very early stage. This is still early stage for us. So, but we've also, so the purpose of telling you is that there has to be a switch within you, because grants also become very contagious. Once you get one, you want to get more and more and more. And over time, it kind of deviates you from your original idea. So you need to know when to switch off or lessen the amount of grant funding you're getting and focus more on revenue or other forms of funding to lead your company.
That's excellent, excellent. Thank you so much. It was a detailed answer, and thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Sara. Brian, you have a question?
Hi, yeah, good morning, Sanji. Thanks for the fantastic presentation earlier on. One of the key issues that we are looking at as an organization and work that we're doing, not just in Asia but in Europe, is to look at how the data is being utilized, because telehealth is not a concept that's just suddenly evolved. It is, as you said, a hugely expanding market. And one of the key problems that we face in this is how we look after the data in terms of the privacy for the patient, but more importantly as well, what the consent for purpose for the use of that data is. And I'm just interested to understand how you're developing your product in terms of a standards-based approach, and more importantly, how you're dealing with consent management for the patient themselves, because there are different markets around the world, certainly in Europe, US and stuff like that, that are more stringent in terms of how you deal with telehealth and telehealth data. And finally, as we move further and further into telehealth per se, when we start to look at the utilization of medical devices in the home and how your potential application can connect with devices from the home, what considerations have you put in place to develop that part of the application?
So I think it's a very interesting question. I think we've really broken down our data management into little blocks of what we want to achieve over the next 2 years. So the first thing that we did was we wanted to make our data collection process very stringent. The second was we wanted to make our data security very stringent. The third was how do we use this data for predictive analysis within the application. Fourth is how do we make this data talk to external softwares or external devices, which is the roadmap that we have. The first thing was we got incredibly lucky to work with Microsoft with their global team to use 3 softwares and data security teams that work with Microsoft themselves to make sure that all the data that we are getting over the application is placed on servers and containers that were HIPAA compliant and extremely secure, encrypted, and had mirrored sequencing as well. So that was one thing that we would do. The second was that there are security companies in Pakistan that do security audits of how an app is performing and if that data is breachable or not. So we have a security company on board that does regular audits and check of how secure our data is and if it's breachable or not. So we invested in that early on. The third thing about consent. So consent is usually in Pakistan embedded in the terms and conditions, but we understand that that is not a way to take consent. So when the consultation begins on our application, it's actually a chat consultation. So you enter into a session, it's a chat consultation. So the first automated message that goes out is we tell them that this is a telemedicine consultation, it's not an alternative to a physical consultation. and we ask for their consent. If a patient responds yes, that is when the consultation continues. If a patient responds no, then the doctor asks to talk to them further, to tell them about the process. And once they've given their consent in writing, that is when we start the consultation. Again, when there is, if they're buying a prescription, again, there's a consent repeated in the same manner, or for any other thing that's happening in the application. And we use this data. So we use a software again by Microsoft to decode the conversation happening on the chat platform and use it as a variable in our analysis. So consent also becomes a variable from that conversation into our analysis. The patient has access to their whole history. They can access their history at any time. They can access their previous consultation data. They can also tell us that they don't want to continue anymore. They can unregister on the application. We don't share patient data with any third party, with any government organization, with any pharmaceutical company. All data is completely encrypted. It is server-based. We work with, as I said, we work with Microsoft to do that. And we use their health-related EMR system to make sure that the data that we're getting, how we're analyzing it on the Power BI platform.
Just a final point to that then, in terms of the contracts that you have with Microsoft, one of the concerns that we've seen over in the UK is that within the terms and conditions of utilizing software from the likes of Microsoft is that they can get access to that data, and then once they have access to data, you then don't know what they are then doing with that data. Similarly, with the likes of the other larger corporates with Google, so again, when you're looking at consent for purpose, is the client aware that this is a potential that Microsoft would be able to utilize their data, and do they then have an ability to prevent that?
So in the consent or in the terms of condition of the application, it is listed that the data is being uploaded on a digital server and their information is available over there. And when they sign up for the terms and conditions, they do give consent to that. Secondly, in our own contract with Microsoft, we've written it very clearly that Microsoft does not have access to individual patient information. They've given us their confirmation and writings that they don't have visibility. It's all encrypted. It is stored in multiple containers on multiple servers, and they don't have access to the individual patient consultation. Obviously, when we use their Power BI platform, they do get exposed to the trends coming on the software, but I'm very certain that they don't have individual personal identifiable information. And it's only available within the super admin that is controlled by 3 team members within the Sehat Kahani company.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, for all the details, information. This is really, really helpful. I'm so excited. Virek?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I'm sorry if I asked this question and you already answered it. My internet has been hopping on and off, and I hear bits and pieces, but just a little bit of background. So I'm running a startup in Cambodia called PillTech. PillTech, we see the value that we're providing, basically connecting pharmacy owners to suppliers, because there are so many fake and counterfeit products. And the second thing that we're also doing is working on a telehealth platform also to provide more access to quality healthcare in general and to the people here, especially in the provinces. They don't have access to good medical facilities, and they have to travel to the city, and it takes them 4 or 5 hours to travel. And I understand that, very similar to Pakistan, Cambodia, probably not so advanced in technology, and having the last 6 months beta testing the tele app, I feel that it's not so much that we don't have good quality doctors or the access to care, but it's actually the technology adoption is one of the key main problem that people don't know how to use. If you look at the smartphone adoption rate in Cambodia, we're looking at 16 million population here, and you have like 32 million adoption rate or something like that in terms of total users, right? But that doesn't mean that they know how to use a smartphone. So I don't know if you answer this question, but how would you how would you start this without having to do so much of, click on the symptoms, go on to, pick the doctors, and then, schedule a date and then come on that day through Zoom or through whatever it is? What would be your quick fix to this problem that we have here, potentially in not only in Cambodia, but I think in Southeast Asia in general?
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. And I think adoption and navigation. Can you hear me? Am I audible? Okay, great.
Yes, can.
So I think adoption and technology conversion on the application, using the application, has been a big problem. Even in Pakistan today, people don't use apps that often. We use Food Panda because it's easy to use. We might use a banking app because it's easy to use. We use Netflix because it's easy to use. And in Pakistan, we have 200 million people and we have 100 million smartphone users. But yes, majority of them are using Facebook or WhatsApp or TikTok or Instagram, and not more difficult or specialized applications. When we started with the clinics, I think the main part that gave us success was there was an intermediary sitting who was doing all of this work on behalf of the patient. So the patient didn't have to do anything. They came, they sat in a physical clinic, the nurse did everything, set up the software and gave it to them. And they just had to talk to the doctor. But when we were making the application, we knew that now that patient would have to do this themselves. And when I made the application, I made it from the point that if I give it to my father tomorrow, would he be able to use the application, who just knows how to use Facebook and WhatsApp? That's the only two things he uses in his phone. And I knew that we had to make it a 2-click operation. So 1 click in opening the application, the 2nd click in reaching to the doctor. Now in our app, there's everything available. You can record your own health history. You can you can upload your documents. You can search doctors on their specialization. But what really works on the application is when you enter the app, on the first page, there's a list of doctors. And there's a big green button that is dark green when the doctor is available, and it's light green when the doctor is not available. So when it's dark green, you just have to click that button and you enter into the consultation. That is how we've gotten the maximum adoption of the application, because on the second window, you just need 1 button and you're in the consultation with the doctor within 60 seconds. And that, I think, has been a game changer for our application, because there's no waiting, there's no appointment booking, there's no symptom recording, there's no navigation anywhere on the application. Once the patient goes into the session, that is when we start recording this. So on the doctor's end, the history form of the patient opens and they have to record the history of the patient. The doctor has to do the doctor notes, they have to do the prescription. Once the consultation ends, the prescription pops up in a notification, and it's also saved in your mobile phone. It comes in an email as well. And now we're also building a process in the app where it would automatically go into your cart and you can buy your pharmacy from there. But it's just that 1 button that says consult me that really gets people to use the app. And that's where we market everywhere as well. Just push a button and you get to consult your doctor. So we have to make it as easy as that. And then, once the patient is exposed to that consultation process, then bring in all the other complicated procedures around it. But that main window is extremely important.
Oh, okay. Yeah, thank you very much. So it seems like initially you start with your own clinic then and having your own doctors to start off. And then how did that progress throughout time? Sorry, I don't know if I think I didn't catch that part.
So we have 2 methods of business. We have clinics for low-income communities. So I'm sure you face the same issue in Cambodia as well, that people who live in the villages or low-income communities don't have access to smartphones themselves, or aren't literate enough to navigate a smartphone. So for them, we create a physical space in which there's a nurse sitting, and she has the software on her tablet, on her mobile phone, and she connects the patient to the doctor. So it's an intermediary assisted model. And for the mass market where people have access to mobile phones, for that we have an app that patient downloads themselves and use it. On both the models, we recruit the doctors, we place them in, even in our clinics as well as on our mobile application. So the doctors work with us and the patients come to us through the clinics or on the application.
I see. So once you get more and more volumes, then you start having sort of independent doctors joining on your platform rather than under your own payroll, right?
So none of the doctors are on our payroll. They get when we say that we recruit doctors, that means that we shortlist them. So individual doctors reach out. So for example, there are 200,000 doctors and we have 6,000 of them. So they've all reached out individually, but we have given them training. We have given them training of the application, of the medical process, and then recruited them as a partner on the app. And they get a revenue share out of each consultation. And this process will continue because we have to do scrutiny of the doctors that are coming in. We can't, at this point, we can't keep the process automated that the doctor signs up themselves, because there's a problem of quackery in Pakistan, which means there are a lot of doctors who don't have medical degrees and they're working. So just to make sure that we have the right doctor on the platform, we have to recruit them ourselves.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you. I'll let someone else ask the question. I have more, but let's just open it up to everyone else here. Thank you very much.
Sure, we can go to Nirsh first, and then I think Brian has another question, and then Virak, we will get back to you right after that.
Thank you, Songi. So, hi, Sara. This is such an inspiring story, and congratulations on your success. Even in Nepal, a lot of women who are professionals stop working after marriage, not due to the taboo issue, but then due to all the family affairs. And this is such an inspirational journey that you have been through. So, so you told that there is, no waiting time, like 6 seconds of waiting time. But as the number of patients grow, it might be hard to maintain that 60-second waiting time. How do you actually provide the no waiting time service, and how do you plan to maintain it? That's my first question. And the second question is, the follow-up. Also, what about the follow-up? A person has to actually see the same doctor for the follow-up, right? So, is the waiting time for the follow-up sessions less than 60 seconds as well? And and my last question is, there might be doctors who haven't worked for a long time because they have not been working for a long time. So they might not have all the skills, in such cases, they might have forgotten some skills or something like that. So while bringing them on board, are there any processes like brushing up courses for brushing up their skills and anything like that?
So how the app works right now is there are two processes by which you can talk to a doctor. So there's an instant consultation option, and then there's a book appointment as well. And totally depends on the doctor. So this is a very flexible platform because it was for female doctors, for them to bring them back to work and for them to feel comfortable. So it's actually a toggle-like system for the doctor. They can choose the number of hours that they're doing instant consultation. They can choose the number of hours that they're doing book appointments. So if they're available for instant consultation, they will start blinking and coming up on the application. If they're not, they can do their regular appointments. The patient, when they come to a specific doctor, they can find a patient on symptom, specialty, or area of expertise. If they're available there and then, they can do a consultation then. But if I have to go to a specific doctor, I can also book a consultation for them. And then the app reminds me 30 minutes before that I have a consultation. It also reminds the doctor. And the patient and doctor can log in on their designated time and get a consultation done. Now, how we treat a follow-up patient is that if I've seen a patient today, I will give them a follow-up time, asking them. So this is going to be an appointment-based follow-up. So follow-ups are usually appointment-based. They're not instant consultations. However, sometimes a patient does follow up, does come up on the application the next day. Now, they might not find the same doctor. They'll find another doctor. So when they find another doctor, what happens is that the case summary that's been prepared by the first doctor reflects to the second doctor because it is the same case for the patient. So I can see what the doctor said the previous day, what prescription they gave, what was the case history of the patient. So that case continues. And this is for us is a case presentation until unless on the third or fourth visit, some doctor closes the case and then the new case for the patient starts. So you can show to the same doctor, you can come up to another doctor on the application, they can follow up your case. As it is a very flexible system, we believe that as we grow the number of patients, we're also going to keep growing the number of doctors. So there will be always some doctors available for instant consultation and some doctors available for appointment. But in case all the doctors are busy, then the patient does get a notification that right now all doctors are busy, and you can try a minute or 10 minutes later. And you can, if you find a doctor for instant consultation, you can go to them. But there are slots available for appointments as well, in case there's a day where all the doctors hopefully will be busy on the platform. But because we see this data on a daily basis, so we can actually see in real time how many patients are coming on the software, how many doctors are engaged, how many doctors are sitting free. We use a very dynamic Power BI dashboard to do this analysis. We actually change the number of doctors on the app on a weekly basis, seeing the trends from the last week. So if in case something like this happens, I think we'll be well prepared to increase the number of doctors in advance, just to make sure that some doctors are available for instant consultation as well.
Thank you, Sara. That answers my question. And yeah, I also like the concept. Actually, one thing actually matched with us that we also have followed the same path of making the app as easy and similar to Facebook for parents and teachers, as they are not technically equipped or literate. So that also felt something rhyming with us. Yeah. Thank you, Sara. Thank you for your answer. Back to you, Songi.
Thank you. Yeah, I know Brian has more questions.
Yes, I do apologize. My mind's racing with lots of different things. Just a couple of things. Obviously, the application is smartphone enabled, and we're doing some projects at the moment in terms of Indonesia, where obviously phone signal is very, very, very poor. And I would like to understand how you resolve those particular issues. But also, it links back to my previous question, and I should have really enhanced a little bit more on that in terms of the governance process that you put in place in terms of verification of even users. So we've talked before about verification of the data pipeline between servers and what have you, and the certification process, but also verification of who the doctors are. Do you have a robust identification process in place for that? And that includes things like their qualifications, etc., whether they are, appropriate to deal with a potential issue, and even the patients themselves. What sort of verification processes do you put in place to resolve that side of things? So basically 3 questions there, I'm afraid, in one go, but I'd just be interested to learn a little bit more about how you deal with those things.
Sure. So for patients who live in smartphone off-grid areas, that's where we have the clinics, and that's why we keep continuing to grow our clinics. These are particularly in places where people don't have access to smartphones themselves, but there's internet penetration. And for smartphone users, we have the app. But yes, there are some areas where there is no smartphones available and there's no internet penetration as well. Internet penetration is around 45% in Pakistan. So we've also made a helpline, which is a phone-enabled helpline in which you can call a nurse, which is sitting in the call center, and she can connect you to doctor on call. Now, this is a third resort for us. So if you come to a clinic and it's closed, or if the internet is not working, then the nurse will use the helpline. And if you're using the mobile application and it's not working, then there'll be a call center number available that you can call. So that's how we handle patients who cannot use internet or technology, but we're primarily a telemedicine, telehealth organization. And this service is meant for customers who have access to phone signals and who have access to internet. And that is where we want to keep our focus on, so that we can perfect these products rather than creating products for everyone. So this is our focus on people who have access to internet and smartphones, or at least mobile phone signals in that case. Now, how do we verify doctors? I think the first thing that we do is Pakistan has a Pakistan Medical and Dental Council, and it's a very robust website. So when we get the resume of any, so we have a form that the doctor needs to fill out, and they need to put their PMDC license. Once we get their PMDC license, we upload it on the website, and we do this in batches. So for example, if we've given a call for like 10 doctors on the platform, then when we'll get their data, we'll run it on the website and we see if they have an active PMDC license or not. Once that's verified that they have an active PMDC license, that means they can practice on any platform in Pakistan. They've been given a license from the government to practice. So once we verify that they're active, that is when we send them a link. And in this link, they have to upload in 15 days all their medical education certificates. So their degree, any courses that they've attended, they have 15 days to do that. Once that period is over, then whoever has submitted their medical education, we send them an OLP link, which is an online learning management system link. Here there are around 13 courses and 2 tutorials that they have to take. They have to pass it. There's a quiz at the end of it. And this, what it does is that when they do that, it gives us an alert with a quiz score that they've gotten. The doctor who scored 60% and above, those are the doctors which are shortlisted for coming on the application. Now, when we onboard the doctors on the application, then we have automated trainings for them to learn the application. And then we have CMEs, which are continuous medical education programs for doctors to build their knowledge. We hire doctors which have at least 3 years experience post their medical training and have not been out of the workforce for more than 3 years. So we don't hire doctors who have been out of the workforce for 10 years because medical protocols generally change every 2 to 3 years. So we want to be a little cautious on the quality of doctors that we have. So this system has worked really well for us, and we keep iterating on it. We keep adding new ideas to make sure our recruitment is robust.
Thank you. Apology, it leads on to many more questions, but I don't really want to, hog all the limelight here. But it is interesting because, I think the reality is what you're saying on there is that you're developing these processes for verification. If you think about when a doctor uploads their certification, then there has to then be a further verification process that the certificates that they're providing are actually exact certificates associated to them, because there are lots of fraud going on around the world where the use of certification is being done inappropriately. So from my perspective, I think that aligns itself to the potential of creating a non-fungible token or a digital asset around certification as well for doctors, and say work that we're doing at the moment within the UK, just any sort of educational certificate to make sure that they belong to the person that says that they are. But yeah, again, lots of more questions, but I'll leave it there. I've bothered you enough. Thank you.
I think just in response to that, I think the PMDC license that we check for, that's a very robust platform by the government of Pakistan. So if there's a PMDC, if we verify the PMDC of the doctor, then whatever certification she's done. So for example, if she's a GP, then that would reflect with the active license. It would be written on the license. If she's a specialist, it would be written on the license. So I think the basic criteria of a doctor practice in Pakistan, that we verify from a government website, that really helps us streamlining the doctor for further things. Obviously, educational certificates, what courses they've done, what other achievements they have, that is secondary. But their primary certification as a doctor and as a specialist and a consultant comes with their PMDC license. So that really helps us making sure that document is authentic.
Yeah, again, there are real-time aspects to that, but again, I could talk for hours with you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Be mindful of time. We only have 3 more minutes left. And Sara, if you allow us 5 more minutes, we will go with one last question. And I have one last wrap-up question for you, actually, to share some of your future plan and how we can help Sehat Kahani to go further. So, but before we go into that, Virag, go ahead with your last question.
Okay, thank you again. Going back to that, since it's a marketplace, you have 2 sides, right? You have the patient and the doctors. So back in the early days, I wanted to see, for you, which had to come first. Obviously, the doctor would have to come first. But my question is actually, if you could go back in time to that day, right, knowing what you know now, what would be the one or few things that you might change to sort of accelerate that speed that you wanted at the early stage, right?
What? I'm sorry, I missed the last part of the question. What would I change?
Yeah, what if you were to go back in time so that the first month or M1 month or year one that you were doing, what would be some of the things that you would change? Like if you were to go back right now, let's just go back in time and look at it and see like, oh, I would have done this so much differently.
Okay, I think I would have fundraised earlier. That's one. I would have set up a better team. I would have really invested in people, which I didn't do. I work with a very small team. Third, I would experiment more. I think we were very cautious. So we create the clinics and we create the app and we piloted it, tested. I think I would take a little bit more risk and throw more products on the market. I would invest earlier in marketing to disseminate the product. And I would really, really invest in a group of advisors to help us do all this. I think we did a lot of learning on trial and error. We did a lot of learning and mistakes by doing mistakes, and we lost time in that. I would now, I think, I have this trusted group of 7-8 people that I just pick up the phone and ask, I'm doing this, is it right or wrong? But I didn't do that as much as I can do it now. So I think these are the couple of changes, but I think team is one thing that I on top of my list. Building a good team, investing on other people who are joining your company and doing their development. That is something that I would have done much, much earlier. This is something that we're really focused on now, the culture that the company is bringing, because as you start expanding, my biggest problem right now is not fundraising or growing operations, is to keep a team together which is motivated enough to lead it, because you can create as many operations as you can have the best app in the world, but if the people behind that are not connected to the core as you are and not staying back year after year doing it with you, then it's very difficult to sustain this animal that you've created. So it's very important to develop a team. So I think that would be my biggest lesson and one thing that I would do.
Thank you for your advice.
Thank you so much. Lovely to hear that feedback. So before we end the session, Sara, thank you so much for taking your time and energy and sharing with your Impact Collective other fellows. How can we help you, and where are you at this moment, need the most help? And then also, what's your future plan moving forward for Sehat Kahani and you as an entrepreneur? And is there anything that we can help and support?
I think Impact Collective has been extremely helpful for us in our last pre-series A round. So one leg of our funding has come from Impact Collective for the purpose of everyone else, and it was very helpful to close the round through your help. I think now we're going to raise a Series A, which is an $8 million round. So anywhere that you feel that there's an investor that we still haven't talked to, or a group of investors that you can connect us to, I think that would be great. We're looking for investors who vouch for a company that has social impact in its core, which is a limited group of investors to find. So I think that would be very helpful. We also are very sure of not losing control as female founders. So we don't want to be minority stakeholders in our own business. Someone who really understands the value of keeping founders at the core of the business. I think that would be helpful. Third is, I think, awareness and exposure, like you are doing for us, is extremely important for any business. Any opportunity to talk to people in the ecosystem, you don't know where your next lead comes from. So I think that's helpful. And yeah, I think you're already doing a lot for us and all the other entrepreneurs, but I think the program is great. It gives an opportunity to a lot of social impact focused companies to learn, to connect. And one suggestion that I would is keep building those connections, because your connection for us with the Korean Impact Collective, the ventures, was extremely helpful. and helped us close our round, and that help can be very significant for other people as well.
Awesome.
Where we're
Yeah.
going is just sorry, I missed a question. Where we are going is now we're trying to raise our Series A round. We want to get to 2 million customers by 2022. That's our immediate plan for the next 2 years, and everything that we're doing is around that. So for us, 2 million customers next 2 years is the goal.
And then they are focused on the Pakistan customers, right?
All Pakistani customers. The Pakistan market is big, so we want to capture the Pakistani market first.
Yeah, awesome, beautiful. Yeah, definitely. We will keep working on all those asks that you talked about, and I think we should have a follow-up conversation about the Series A as well. Yes, and I will personally connect you with other investors as well to support you better. And I'm a big fan of you, by the way. Fangirl. Yeah. And by the way, for the teams, Impact Collective Cohort 2, Dr. Ifa, which is her co-founder, she is registered as an expert for your cohort. So, go find her and then have an office hour with her. And I'm sure if you have like a more question to Sara, just give it to us and we will actually kind of put it together and then send it to her. Then I'm sure she can make more time for us at some point. Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you so much for coming today, Sara and all the other fellow Impact Collective makers. And I will see you guys on Wednesday for Impact Makers for speed dating with expert. And Sara, I will catch up with you separately.
All right. Thank you, guys. It was a pleasure being here. Thank you for all the questions. Engaging session always is best. Thank you. It was a pleasure. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.